कैसे हो आप लोग? वेलकम बैक, माई सेल्फ पुष्पेंद्र सिंह and we are going to start with our daily current affairs. So today you have 22nd of June 2021 and these lectures are basically based on the current affairs and are very useful for those who are preparing for the civil services examination which is conducted by the UPSC. So you can supplement your preparation with the help of these lectures. Right. So let's begin with the lecture. Okay, the first news is all about the comparison between the Covishield and the Covaxin. These are the two vaccines which are available in our market and which are currently being administered to the citizens of our country, right, in the various age groups. So recently, a report which is published by by the media, which shows the reports of the healthcare workers shows that the two doses of the Covishield vaccine have produced more antibodies than the doses of the Covaxin. Okay, but they have also shows in the report that there were very few instances where the breakthrough infections was occurred after administering the dose of Covaxin than Covishield, right? So definitely more antibodies is developed in the Covishield after taking the two doses, but there were very few infections after taking the Covaxin, as reported by the study of healthcare workers. Okay, so here on the 1st January 2021, the Drug Control Journal of India approved the AstraZeneca's the COVID-19 vaccine that is also marketed in the form of Covishield in our country. That vaccine name is AZD1222. Okay. Now, this Covishield is basically manufactured by the Serum Institute of India. As you know, that Serum Institute of India is basically, one of the largest or Indian biotechnology and biopharmaceutical company. It is the world largest vaccine manufacturer in the country. Okay. It is currently being located in the Pune. Okay. Now, this vaccine that we are talking about, the Covishield, it is basically a viral vector vaccine, right? Which is basically, based on the replication of the deficient adenovirus that causes the cold in the chimpanzees. So what is this viral vector vaccine? That is basically also the Covishield is also the one form of viral vector vaccine. So here the viral vector vaccines basically differ from the most conventional type of vaccine which is available in our market, right? So these viral vector vaccines they don't actually contain antigens, right? But rather use the body's own cells, okay, to produce them. So they do this by using some sort of a modified virus, or we call it a vector, okay, in the biological sense, to deliver the genetic code for the antigens, right? In case of COVID-19 that we are talking, right? So in case of COVID-19 spike protein, which is found on the surface of the virus, right? Definitely into the human cells. So by infecting these cells and instructing them to make, the large amount of antigens, they then trigger the immune response in the body of the person, and this vaccine basically mimics what happens during the natural infection with certain pathogens, specifically the viruses. So that is what we are using, basically this white virus, or this viral vector vaccine. Okay. Next, the Covaxin. The Covaxin is basically, marketed in the name of the Covaxin, which is basically, approved by the Drug Control Journal of India for its emergency and conditional use on 2nd January 2021, very next day of approving of the Covishield. Okay, this Covaxin is developed by the Bharat Biotech in the collaboration with the Indian Council of Medical Research as well as the National Institute of Virology. So this Covaxin is basically the Indian version of the COVID vaccine, right? Regarding the Bharat Biotech, the Bharat Biotech is basically a Indian multinational biotechnology company which is currently being headquartered in Hyderabad. Okay, so it is based in Hyderabad. It is a multinational biotechnology Indian company. Regarding Indian Council of Medical Research, it is the apex body, right? For formulation, for coordination, and for promotion of biomedical research in our country. And this National Institute of Virology basically located in Pune again in the Maharashtra, right? It is a research institute and it's part of the Indian Council of Medical Research. Okay. Regarding Covaxin, it is basically the whole variant inactivated coronavirus vaccine, okay, which is basically currently being used for the purpose of the manufacturing for other vaccines like the influenza, rabies, hepatitis A, right, which causes some sort of a strain of infectious SARS-CoV-2 virus. So this vaccine that we are talking about, this whole variant inactivated coronavirus vaccine, right, it is the weakened or attenuated or the deactivated form of the pathogen that causes the disease, or to trigger some sort of a protective immunity to the system. So there are currently two types of the whole virus vaccines. The first is basically the live attenuated vaccine, okay, which uses a weakened form of virus, right, that they can still grow and replicate but does not harm, or does not cause the illness. And the second is this inactivated form, this inactivated that we are talking about. Okay, this inactivated vaccine contain the viruses, those whose the genetic material have been destroyed by heat or by chemicals or by radiation, whatever it may be, so that they cannot infect the cells, and they could replicate, right, and but can still trigger some sort of immune response in the body. So this type of vaccine that we are talking about, the whole variant inactivated coronavirus vaccine, have been formulated, right, with the Angel IMDZ, which contains some sort of a the chemically absorbed the TLR7 by 8, right. This TLR7 by 8 that we are talking about is basically a toll like receptor. So this TLR means it is basically a toll like receptor, okay, 7, which is also known as the TLR7 or the TLR8. The TLR8 means the toll like receptor 8. It is nothing but, what is that? It is just a protein. It's just a protein, right, that in the humans which is encoded by the TLR7 gene. Okay, now this is basically used into the the aluminum hydroxide gel to generate the requisite type of immune response without damaging body of a person. So its composition of this Covaxin include this inactivated coronavirus, aluminum hydroxide gel, this TLR7 or 2LR8 against 2-phenoxyethanol and phosphatic buffer saline, that is also known as NKA1. That is just in chemical composition of the Covaxin. Okay, you could basically compare this Covaxin with the Covishield here. The Covaxin is developed by Bharat Biotech. The Covishield is developed by Serum Institute of India. It is basically the inactivated virus. It is basically non-replicating viral vector that I've explained you the difference between two. The efficacy of the Covishield is 70.42%. It is not been known still. The storage temperature required for the Covaxin is 2 to 8 degrees Celsius. For the purpose of Covaxin, it is 2 to 8 degrees Celsius, the same. Okay. The two doses are administered 0 to 14 days. These two doses are administered in the gap of 2.5 to 3 months. Right. This have been recently increased. Okay. And as you know that this dose is basically again because government regulations allow these doses to be administered free of cost to all the citizens of the country. Okay. Next, you have the farmers protest, right. So recently a report was published that is known as the state of environment in the figures 2021 report. This report says that there is five-fold increase in the farmers protest since 2017. So this report basically compiled the data from 2017 and compares, right, recently 2020-21 protest, right, across the country. So it shows that since 2017 there is five-fold increase in the farmers protest in our country. This report is being released by the Center for the Science and Environment. The Center for the Science and the Environment is basically public interest research and advocacy organization. It is currently based in New Delhi. Okay, so as per the report, the Center for the Science and Environment says that in 2017 only 34 major protests were there in all across 15 states. But today this number of protests has shot up to 165. So you could see that almost 4 times jumps, right, or more than 4 times jump in the number of protests, and the number of states affected because of the protest also jumped out from 15 to 22 states and the union territories, right. Definitely this protest is basically definitely in the background of the three contentious central farm laws which is passed by the parliament, as well as some of the issues related to the procurement and agricultural market price like MSP, right, with that regard. So what we are talking about, these three farm laws or three contingent farm laws which is passed by the parliament, right, which include basically the Farmers Produce Trade and the Commerce Act. Okay, the second is the Farmers Empowerment of the Protection Agreement of the Price Insurance or the Farm Service Act 2020, right, as well as the third is basically the Essential Commodities Act 2020. These were the three acts that were basically have the protest across the country, right. And because of that, even opposition parties also supporting these farmers to bring back, right, those contentious basically the farm laws which have been passed by the parliament and which have been assented by the president of the country. So these three farm laws right? That is the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Act 2020. This is the first law which have been also contentious. The second is basically the farmers, you know, agreement, you know, of the price insurance, Farm Service Act 2020. This is the second act, and the third act is basically the Farm Service Act. The Farm Service Act, which is basically causing this protest right across the country. As you know that every day, 28 farm laborers 28 farm laborers basically committing suicide, okay, in our country in 2019 itself. If you see the data of 2019, in this report says that around 5,957 farmers basically committed suicide. The farmers committed suicide, right? Which is basically, along with the additional 4,324, the farm laborers also committed suicide or who died by the suicide also. So here, the 12 of such, the protest which we are calling, among this 165 protest, among this 165, the 12 are basically the Pan India protest that is related to the three controversial central farm laws. This include the 11 agitations against the three farm laws, which was introduced last year by the Modi government, right? Definitely, some of these protests or some of these 17 agitations, which are also related to the acquisition of the farmland, which is basically, acquired by the government of India for the purpose of infrastructure projects like highways, the airport construction, and etc. Okay, at least 7 of these agitations, as per the report, also related to the loan waivers. So the farmers basically demanding the loan waivers, right? As well as they are also demanding to have, the insurance coverage and the delayed compensation. So these protests are basically related to that aspect, right? As you know that farmers, specifically in the Punjab and Haryana, they are forefront definitely in the protest outside the Delhi. Okay, the data also shows that, as per the report, that the largest number of the protests or recent protests have been taken place in the southern states also, like Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, and Telangana. This is the first time the trend basically occurring over there. So here you could see the farmers basically protesting due to these three contentious central laws. Okay, next, illegal adoption. So let me give you a background. So what is happening is that because of COVID-19, many children are becoming basically, either they become orphaned or they become, without the parents. So what is happening is that the illegal adoption is being going on the online platforms, right, through some websites or through some, some agencies. So what is happening is that such type of illegal adoption without due process or without following the Juvenile Justice Act 2015, which mandate that the Central Adoption Resource Authority is the statutory body which is mandated for the purpose of adoption, right, will be taken place. But now what is happening is that because of, this illegal adoption that have been taken place across the country through, some of the private individuals or the private organizations are basically cause of the concern, because such type of illegal adoption may be used for the sexual exploitation, may be used for the organ, the trade, and may be used for the exploitation of the children in that respect. So definitely, Supreme Court have agreed to intervene in this respect after the National Commission for the Protection of the Child Rights basically, they sounded some sort of a red alert, right? That's of these the illegal adoption that has been going on through some online platform. So definitely, some of the social media posts circulating all around us basically shows that the children are up for the adoption, right? And this is totally legal, and this is against the Juvenile Justice Act. So definitely, the adoption of this abandoned, surrendered, or the orphaned children, right, which is because of various regions, right, should be done, through the due process as per the Juvenile Justice Act. And unless this procedure is adopted, otherwise all other process of adoption is considered as illegal process. Okay, in that respect, the section 74 of the Juvenile Justice Act basically prohibit the disclosure of the children's identity before such children is basically adopted. So any sort of identity of the children which is related to the name of the school, name of the children, the school age, right, the age of the children, the address, or any other information, any other personal information, right, which is associated with the children, right, would make them susceptible for the trafficking, would make them susceptible for the misuse, right, for the traffickers specifically. So as per, the NCPCR stats report says that in our country, because of the COVID-19, right, 3,621 children are basically orphaned, right? The 26,176 children lost their parents, and the 274 children basically they have abandoned in between April 1st, 2021 to June 5, 2021. It is all across the country, right, due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So as you know that as per the Juvenile Justice Act, you have the authority that is known as SARA, or that is known as the Central Adoption Resource Authority, right? This is a statutory body under the Ministry of Women and Child Development under the Government of India, right? It functions as a nodal body for the adoption of the children and is mandated to monitor and to regulate the inter-country as well as in-country adoptions. So definitely the SARA is designed as the central authority to deal with any sort of adoption, okay, of the children. So definitely the SARA primarily deals with the adoption of these orphan children, the abandoned children, or the surrendered children, okay, definitely with recognized adoption agencies. But definitely by using the social media platform and circulating this news that children for adoption is available, that is quite illegal. Okay. Next, you have the National Population Register. So recently, the background of the National Population Register, you must understand that the Parliament of India basically passed the Citizenship Amendment Act, okay, 2019. This Citizenship Amendment Act basically was passed by the Parliament on 11 December 2019. Specifically, right, under this Amendment Act, or under the Citizenship Amendment Act, the migrants, specifically the migrants, okay, which entered into the India, right, by 31st of December 2014, that is on and before, right, that is on and before. So any sort of migrants which entered into the India on and before, right, 31st of December 2014, and those migrants which have suffered the religious persecution, right, the religious persecution, right, in, or they are facing, or they are fearing of some sort of a religious persecution in the country of their origin, right, and definitely they are eligible for the citizenship or for getting the Indian citizenship under Citizenship Act, right. So here the 2019 bill that we are talking about, the Citizenship Amendment Act, basically seeks to make, these illegal migrants, right, who are basically belongs to the six different community or six different religion, that is the first of all Hindu, Sikhs, Buddhist, Jains, right, the Parsis, and the Christians. These are basically the six religious groups. They are religiously persecuted, or they are fearing religious persecution, right, or they are considered the illegal migrants, right, and they have originated, or they came down from the three countries, that is Afghanistan, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. So only these three countries, where these six community people are facing religious persecution, and if they entered into the India for the long-term visas, right, so they could basically register themselves under the Citizenship Amendment Act, right, for the purpose of getting the permanent citizenship of our country. So they could get the certificate of the citizenship through the process called naturalization if they are residing in our country for continuous 6 years since 2014 onward, right. Recently the Ministry of Home Affairs also informed that, right, even if they produce, right, the enrollment slip as a part of the proof of their duration of their stay in our country, that was prepared, right, during the National Population Register, that will also be used as a proof for the purpose of getting this, the Indian citizenship from these religious minority communities. So definitely the National Population Register basically numbers as a part of the illustrative list, right, where, right, it's a part of the list where the almost 10 type of documents could be used, right, for basically getting this type of Indian citizenship, either by the naturalization under the Citizenship Act 1955. So the six communities belongs to the Hindu, Sikhs, Jain, Parsis, Christians, Buddhists, from these three countries, that is Bangladesh, okay, Pakistan, and Afghanistan, right. they are eligible to get the Indian citizenship under the naturalization. So definitely the special provision of these long-term visas will be applicable for the Hindus and the Sikhs, right? That has been originated from Pakistan and Afghanistan. That was first made with the reference in 2011 itself, right? Recently, ministry have asserted that this type of awareness drive is not related to the Citizenship Amendment Act, because Citizenship Amendment Act is yet to be implemented, but definitely it is some sort of a giving, definitely as informatory. It's not about the intention to give some sort of a benefit to undocumented migrants from these six groups who have entered into India before 2014 cutoff date. Next, you will have T478K. The T478K is a new variant of the SARS-CoV-2 virus. So here, an analysis of 1 million, right, the genome sequences of the SARS-CoV-2 genome sequences have revealed that a new variant of T478K was basically found. This new variant of T478K was found specifically in Northern America, and it's very fastly spreading in the Mexico, which is a country in Northern America, and it has also been found in the Europe. So what is happening is that the University of Volgona, that is the University of Volgona, which is basically located in Italy. Okay, so here the University of the Volgona basically published a paper or research paper, right, in the Journal of Medical Virology, which described this new variant, right, and they have renamed, or they have named this new variant as T478K, right, which is also presents some sort of a mutation in this spike of protein. So this variant have been increasingly spreading, right, among the people in specifically in the Northern America. Okay, and particularly the Mexico. The Mexico is the country in the Northern America. To date, this variant basically covers more than 50% of the existing viruses which have been found in the Mexico. So this variant represents around 52.8% of all sequenced coronaviruses found in Mexico. So that means 52.8% of the variants belongs to this new variant, that is T478K, and it is huge concern specifically in the US as well as the European country, because US is the neighboring country, but in the US this virus is only 2.7% of the sequence samples. So in the US it is not of a concern, but in the Europe this virus is spreading very fastly. For example, in the Germany, in the Sweden, in the Switzerland, okay, in Italy also, where this University of Bologna is located, right, this virus is virtually non-existent, and only 4 cases have been reported in the Italy from this T478, the new variant of the virus. So as you know, this, like other strains, which represents a mutation in the spike of the protein and spreading in the Northern America, particularly in the Mexico. Okay, next you have the National Financial Reporting Authority. So first of all, the National Financial Reporting Authority, right, have invited the suggestions from the public on the consultation paper on the National Financial Reporting Authority's engagement with the stakeholders. So what is happening is that I'll give you a background. So here the National Financial Reporting Authority, right, on June 8, 2021, okay, has set up a technical advisory committee, that is called TAC, or Technical Advisory Committee. The main purpose or the main objective of setting up this technical advisory committee by the National Financial Reporting Authority, right, is to have the engagement or to review the National Financial Reporting Authority's engagement with all stakeholders, right, and has in its report, which was published in the March 2021, right, in the last month, the important recommendations which was also given recently by the Technical Advisory Committee have shows that the formulation of the advisory or the consulting group or the institution of the fellowship programs, right, the publication of the National Financial Reporting Authorities, the inspection policy, like the building up of this the National Financial Reporting Authorities regulatory capacity, different type of recommendation have been given by this Technical Advisory Committee. So therefore now this National Financial Reporting Authority have prepared and published and consulting paper, okay, which incorporate some sort of a preliminary views, right, which is given by the Technical Advisory Committee, as well as this consultation paper also consisting of the action plan, right? Definitely on the recommendation of this technical advisory committee. And now this has been circulated to the people, right? It will be available to the people for giving their view, right? Now let us understand this National Financial Reporting Authority. So this National Financial Reporting Authority was established by the central government, right? It was set up as a regulatory body under section 132 of Companies Act. Now it has been set up in October 2018 itself, right? Definitely with the fundamental objective of this driving of systematic change in the Indian financial reporting system, specifically with for the public interest entities or with respect to those auditors. So definitely after Satyam scandal, the Standing Committee on the Finance, which is a permanent committee, right, belongs to the Parliament, have proposed the concept of the setting up of this National Financial Reporting Authority, right, in its report, in its 21st report. So definitely its mandate is to oversee, right, the accounting and the auditing standards in our country, right, definitely by the standards, and it is described as the auditors or the companies listed, the public interest entities, and its other function is to basically make a database which basically consisting of the information relating to the companies and auditors that comes under the regulatory ambit of the National Financial Reporting Authority. It has been currently been headquartered in the New Delhi. It consisting of the one chairman, three full-time members, and one secretary, right? Recently, the former IS officer, right, the Rangachari Sridharan was appointed as the first chairperson of the body in October 2018. Okay. Next, you have the first chimeric antigen receptor T cell, or that is also known as CAR T therapy. This CAR T therapy is very, very costly, right? It was not available in our country till now, but now, right? This first CAR T cell therapy, it was done in the Tata Memorial Hospital, which is a famous hospital in the Mumbai. So this first chimeric antigen receptor T cell therapy was performed on the cancer patient at the Tata Memorial Hospital in New Delhi, in Mumbai, sorry. This CAR T therapy, which was not available in our country, it was very, very costly also. It cost around 3 to 4 crore rupees, right, for the patient to get this CAR T therapy. So by performing this CAR T therapy, the India would get, the significant benefit, from this technology, right? So here the CAR T cells are basically designed and manufactured at the Bioscience and the Bioengineering Department of IIT Bombay, which is a prestigious department or prestigious institution of the national importance. So here such type of CAR T cells will be produced, will be manufactured at IIT Bombay with the support of the Department of Biotechnology, right, through the National Biopharma Mission, right? So here the Biotechnology Industry and Research Assistance Council, which is also a part of the manufacturing and the designation of this, the CAR T cells will be manufactured at the Department of IIT Bombay, is a non-profit organization which is set up as a public sector enterprises by the Department of Biotechnology, definitely under the Ministry of Science and Technology. Now let us understand what is this about, the CAR T cell therapy process. I'll give you a brief understanding about this CAR T, the therapy you could understand in that. So what happens is that first of all, the patient will be taken to the clinic, right? The blood will be taken out from the patient, right? Definitely in the clinic, and then the white blood cells, which also include these T cells that we are talking about, right, are basically separated out, and then the rest of the blood is returned to the patient. Okay. Next, in the second stage, what happens is in the lab or in the manufacturing facility that we are talking about at IIT Bombay, the T cells are basically engineered to find and kill, the cancerous cells, specifically in the body. So what happens is that an inactive virus is basically used to insert the genes into these T cells. Okay, then these genes causes the T cells to make some sort of a special receptors that calls CAS, that call the CAS, or simply the chimeric antigen receptor, okay, on their surface, and ultimately the modified T cells, now we call them the CAR T cell, or simply the chimeric antigen receptor T cell, or a CAR T cell, right, are now multiplied until they are the millions of these attacker cells. And now in the third stage, these CAR T cells are then put back into the patient's bloodstream. Okay, and typically after some sort of a chemography is given to make a space, and these continue to multiply after that. And in the fourth stage, what happens is in the body specifically, these targets or their targets of these CAR T cells are basically the cancer cells. So these receptors which are attached to these targets on the surface of these cancer cells. So here the CAR T cells identify the cancer cells with the target antigens, right, and then kill them ultimately. So the CAR T cells may remain in the body for some time to help and to prevent the cancer cells from returning back. Okay, so that is how it will be performed. I just shows you how that the CAR T therapy would be performed in the patient, right? And it will be very useful technique, right? Definitely. And here the CAR T therapy or chimeric antigen receptor T cell therapy have been emerged as a breakthrough specifically in the cancer treatment to the patients which are suffering from the acute lymphocytic leukemia. Okay, and recently this was not available in our country, but by performing this CAR T therapy, the idea is also got this type of technology, and definitely this therapy costs around 3 to 4 crore rupees. So it's a very, very costly therapy. Okay, next, the Indian Navy blue water operations with a green footprint. So what is that? I'll give you a background. So first of all, the environmental protection and the green initiatives have always been, a key focus area of our Indian Navy. Okay, and a responsible multi-dimensional force, the Indian Navy has embarked upon the reducing its environmental footprint, right, through the energy conservation or through minimizing the marine pollution, the use of alternative sources of the energy, right. So in that background, the Indian Navy environment conservation roadmap, or the roadmap which is being prepared by the Indian Navy, right, in that respect for the purpose of the blue water operations with a greener footprint, so that it could reduce its footprint, specifically the carbon footprint, while operating the Indian Navy's operation. So it will be definitely a noteworthy initiative that was initiated, right, under the clean and the green Navy by the Indian Navy. So here the Indian Navy have commissioned one of the largest solar power plant with a capacity of 3 megawatt at the Indian Naval Academy, Azimala, in July 2020. Another milestone was a 2 megawatt solar power plant have been installed at the naval station in the Karanja in the Mumbai in July 2020. Right, definitely that will have the overall installed solar plant capacity at the naval stations is 11 megawatt. Definitely that will cut down the carbon footprint from the Indian naval operations. So the installation of this solar photovoltaic, the plants in the line of the Navy's objective of of fulfilling this or cutting down this carbons specifically from these emissions as per the Jawaharlal Nehru National Solar Mission. So by setting up of this solar photovoltaic plants or solar photovoltaic cells, definitely the carbon footprint from the Indian Navy will also be cut down, right? And the variability of setting up of this urban forest concept have been emphasized to match the theme during the World Environmental Day, that was the ecosystem restoration, that was also initiated with the help of Indian Navy. Okay, next, the Pakistan makes the progress in the terror financing rating. So here what is happening is that, as you know, that the Pakistan is already in the gray list of in the basically in the money laundering list that has been prepared by the Financial Action Task Force, or FATF. Okay, recently the Pakistan have improved its rating with the Asia Pacific Group, specifically in the money laundering, ahead of the important decision which may put the Pakistan in the blacklist also. But recent improvement in its rating definitely would bring the Pakistan back from this gray list, right? And this will be done in the later of this month. So in the 40 parameters related to the anti-money laundering and the combating financing of the terrorism, the Pakistan have taken certain positive initiative, and then Pakistan have made the progress in 21 items, and but the Pakistan have downgraded on the one. So here the APG or Asia Pacific Group's manual evaluation report basically published on the June 4th says that the Pakistan has significantly improved or made the progress in the terror financing rating. So definitely that would put Pakistan up in the one category that will be due in the evaluation of the terror financing groups. So that we are talking about the Asia Pacific Group, that is basically on the money laundering. It was specific group on the money laundering. It's an intergovernmental organization. It consisting of around 41 member jurisdictions in the Asia Pacific region. Okay, and the main purpose of this Asia Pacific group on the money laundering is to effectively implement the international standards related to the money laundering, the terrorist financing, as well as the proliferation of the financing related to the weapons of the mass destruction. The Pakistan is basically one of the countries in the world which basically promote this and money laundering or the terror financing or proliferation of these weapons of the mass destruction. So definitely by imposing some sort of a restriction on the country like Pakistan, right, definitely we will have the safer world in the future. And it will also be part of the global network of the similar bodies, like you have the Financial Action Task Force style regional bodies, and definitely that will have its own membership in that respect. The secretariat of this Asia Pacific, the group on the money laundering is located in the Sydney in the Australia, and this Asia Pacific group on the money laundering was founded in 1997 in the Bangkok in Thailand. Okay. Next you have the Vidarbha Tiger Corridors. So here, right, in the first of its kind, the radio telemetry have been deployed, right, to identify the corridors which are used by the tigers in the Vidarbha landscape. So what is happening is that the tigers, which basically ventured deeper into the forest area as well as the beyond the forest areas. So in order to track down the corridors which are used by the tigers in the Vidarbha landscape, to track down their actual movement, the radio telemetry was first time used, right, by the officials of the forest department. Okay, so what is that radio telemetry? So since 1960s onward, right, the scientists or various forest department have been using this technique called the radio telemetry to locate the animals and the track for their movement. So this radio telemetry uses the radio signals. They basically use the radio signals, right, that are made up of the invisible or the silent electromagnetic waves to determine the exact or the precise location of the animal. Okay, a radio telemetry system is made up of three parts. They are of three parts. That is, first of all, the radio transmitter. Okay, then a radio antenna and the radio receiver. These are basically the three parts. A radio transmitter is basically fitted or attached with the animal, right? It's a part of the transmitting some sort of electromagnetic waves, okay, that sends the radio signal. The scientist or the forest official basically uses this antenna to pick up the radio signals, which are then transformed to the beeping sound by the receiver. As the receiver gets the closer to that transmitter, the beep get louder. So that means the animal which is wearing this transmitter is basically close by. So if the beep of the receiver is higher, that means you could identify that the animal which is very closer to your area. So the researchers or the forest officials could use this audible clue or this audible device to locate and follow the animal wearing transmitter, and definitely that will also help in the reduction of the illegal poaching of these tigers specifically in this landscape, as well as it will also reduce the man-animal conflict also. So the study indicate that the animals are basically moving much wider area, right? And now it has been investigated by the Maharashtra Forest Department as well as the Wildlife Research Institute of our country. Vidarbha presently consisting of the 331 tigers, right, which is combinedly in the area of 26,775 square kilometers, right? This area is dissected by the 84,000 kilometers of the road. Apart from that, it will also have the infrastructural, the projects like irrigation canals and other projects. So definitely, it's a zone of the man-animal conflict. So with the help of this telemetry, we could reduce this man-animal conflict also, right? So various projects have been carried out between 2017 and 2020 with the help of these radio signals, and identified that 37,667 square kilometers of the region as of tiger corridors. So definitely the tiger, which is also dubbed as the epic journey of the walker, or the tiger which is dubbed, right, which have covered almost 3,000 kilometers, right, a journey from the Tipeshwar sanctuary in the Yavatmal district of Maharashtra to the Dhyan Ganga sanctuary in the Buldana district, right, which have significantly covered, right, at the journey. So here the tiger territory that we are talking about is basically across all along this corridor. So here you could understand that you will have the state boundary or the Maharashtra state boundary. Then you have the Vidarbha district, which is basically shown with the help of this black, and the green is basically shown in the form of the protected areas. But the tiger basically ventured beyond the protected area also. So that's all for today. Thank you very much. We'll meet again tomorrow. Thank you.